Hello everyone. Welcome to the second week of July. We're here for another weekly forecast. This is Ray from Ray of Light Astrology, and we're recording from my car today. I don't have my fun glasses, and we're doing what we can with what we have. So I've got my notes here, and we're going to be looking at the astrology of July 8th through the 14th, so stay tuned. And so on Monday, July 8th, we've got Venus in Cancer making a sextile to Uranus in Taurus. And then we've got Mercury in Leo making a sextile to Jupiter in Gemini. And it is also going to make a trine to the North Node in Aries. While that's happening, we've also got the Moon in Leo at the same time. It's going to be making a square to Mars in Taurus, and then also making a trine to Chiron. And so this Monday the 8th, today could be a good day for like a surprise collaboration, but you want to make sure that you don't try to shine brighter than the other person. Be content with and honest about what you have to offer and what you need from others. And so with Jupiter and Gemini and with Mercury being involved, I think there's a lot of like thinking and talking and ideas, and Jupiter to me, especially when it was in Taurus, but even also while it's in Gemini, is all about collaboration, about growing together. And so with it being in Gemini, there's this this energy of wanting to collaborate and share and exchange ideas and to grow them bigger and bigger. And we want to make sure that when we're in that process, that it's a collaborative process, that both of us are contributing rather than one person, doing all the work. And you want to make sure that you know your strengths, that you know your weaknesses, so that you can be honest about what you have to offer and be honest about what you need out of a collaboration. A lot of people, like me, for example, I love collaborating with other people. I love working with other people. But that desire alone doesn't produce a good collaboration. It still has to have, I still need to know what I'm bringing to the table, and they need to know what they're bringing to the table, so that we can compensate for each other and build off of each other rather than, kind of compete. And so I think that's kind of the energy here, is trying to avoid the energy of competition and harnessing it into collaboration. And that's going to be Monday, July 8th. So Tuesday, July 9th, overnight at around 2 a.m., we've got the Moon in Leo. It is going to make a square to Uranus in Taurus. And right after that, maybe not right after, but some hours later, around 9 or 10 a.m., it's going to move into the sign of Virgo. And then we've also got, actually, those are the main things that day. Is the Moon is in Leo, it's going to square Uranus on its way out, and then it's going to enter Virgo that day. And so this is kind of like there was a spark ignited last Tuesday, which was fanned into a flame maybe this Saturday. Today there's some tension around this flame. So what are some practical ways you could cool down? And so I think of this energy of like a new relationship. Maybe you met someone or you made a new friend, and you have this spark, you have this energy, this catalyst of like, I want to go in, I want to hang out, I want to get to know you, and maybe they're matching that energy, but then how is that going to look in the long term? How is that going to last? Because a big forest fire will consume the whole forest, quickly, but a small controlled fire can last a long time. I mean, I'm thinking even of like, I believe it was the Vestial Virgins, which is, they served Vesta, which was a goddess, and it's also an asteroid, one of the asteroid goddesses. And it was all about the hearth fire. And it was like they had this temple and they had this fire in the temple, and it was like symbolic of the heart of the city. It was like, this is the city's life force. It is pumping this metaphorical blood into the rest of the city, and by keeping it tended to, by making sure it never burned out and never burned too big. It's a metaphor for what it takes to maintain something long term, for the work that comes into maintaining it, rather than just creating something and starting a fire and then letting it go loose or letting it die out. We have to be really, really intentional with how we maintain fires. And so whatever that fire is for you, what are some practical ways that you could maybe cool it down if it's too hot, or maybe add some extra kind of kindling to keep it going if it, that's what you're looking for. And so that's going to be Tuesday the 9th. And then we're on to Wednesday the 10th. So the moon is in Virgo. It is going to make a square to Jupiter in Gemini that morning, and then later that evening the sun in Cancer is going to be making a trine to Saturn in Pisces. So this, if you watched the forecast for last week, you might have remembered on Tuesday I mentioned not to make any promises that you can't keep. And the reason for that is because people remember. And we want to have a good reputation. We want to be in line with what we say. We don't want to be saying one thing and doing another. And so today, your word and your reputation will come out to help or hinder you. And so if you were there for for whoever you made your commitments to last week, you honored them, you communicated what you couldn't honor, you made sure that you were on the same page with these people, that will come in to help you. And Wednesday is kind of the day I'm thinking that we might see the effects of the commitments that we made last week. And so it's not too busy in the sky. It's just those two transits that I mentioned. And with the sun and with Saturn being involved, it's definitely... it takes time to do things. It's all about the long term. And Saturn gets a bad rep for a lot of reasons. I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest Saturn fan myself, but it is something that I have to acknowledge the beauty of and the function of, because it's not all just doom and gloom. There are some really cool things about Saturn. If nothing else, Saturn, is all about the color black, and I love my black clothes. And that sounds so silly, like just added space. But there's a whole concept called planet remediation, and part of that includes the clothes that you wear and wearing clothes that would be appealing to certain planets. And so black is a color that is appealing to Saturn. And when the sun and Saturn are involved, it's all about light and darkness. And so really what's happening today is light is being shed on those long-term things, because Saturn it represents darkness as well as those long-term kind of goals. And so that light is shining there. It's in a trine, and that is a Jupiterian kind of aspect. It's an aspect of expansion and generally good things, but it's not always good. For example, what is it called? Not a tornado, but like when there's water in it, maybe it's a tsunami, I don't know. But even a tornado or a hurricane, like that is an example of an easy flowing energy where things are flowing really well together, but it's like so much, it's this huge big disaster. And so growth and expansion isn't always good, and neither is kind of things being easy. And so that's where we have a lot of our range of different outcomes from. Maybe it'll be helpful or maybe it'll be hurtful, but kind of beating a dead horse at this point. So keep your word. Today, Wednesday the 10th, you might see the effects of it. And that's it for the 10th for Wednesday. So now we are moving on to Thursday the 11th, which is a much busier day in the sky. We only had two little things going on kind of for that Wednesday, but on Thursday the 11th, Oh, mama. We've got the moon in Virgo. It's going to oppose Saturn in Pisces. It's going to form a sextile to the sun in Cancer. And then it's going to make a trine to Mars in Taurus. We've also got Venus in Cancer. It's going to make a trine to Neptune in Pisces. The sun, who is still in Cancer. Actually, forget that one. I'm not going to use my blessed Athena. The Athena asteroid, the sun in Cancer is going to be trine Pallas Athena in Scorpio. And then Venus is moving into Leo today, the 11th. Oh, and if you thought I was done, I'm not. There's more going on. I said it was a busy day. And so the moon is going to be in Virgo. It's going to make a trine to Uranus and Neptune. And then it's going to oppose Neptune in Pisces. And it's going to make a trine to Uranus and Taurus. Not Uranus and Neptune, because it's not a thing. And then because it's still not done, it's going to go into, the moon is going to go into Libra and form a sextile with Venus as it enters Libra. So that's a lot. There's a lot going on in the sky this day. The moon especially is very busy making different aspects because we've got some major planets in a lot of water signs right now. And so whenever it's in another water sign, it's going to make that trine. Oh, so my notes for the day, because that is just a lot of astro babble. The moon is doing the most in Virgo before taking a break in Libra that evening. You can expect to have a busy day. Try to plan accordingly so you can wrap up early and get some rest. And so sometimes we don't need to overcomplicate it. We don't need to get into every single planet that's involved, every single relationship that it's in with other planets. Sometimes it's enough to just see a crowd of people and know that it's busy. I don't know if you've ever been to a restaurant and you walk in and you're kind of still sussing out whether that's the place that you want to go or not. And so you get in and you see how busy it is. And sometimes you go in, you see the vibe, and it is like too many people. The staff's overwhelmed, they're in a rush. Everything's just kind of chaotic. Well, that tells you all you need to know. If you've got the time, all good. If you don't, then maybe you want to do something else. And so I'm just kind of just saying, like, we're walking into Thursday, we're looking at the restaurant, and it is busy. There are orders flying out everywhere, food running up and down, plates being thrown at the wall, like, it's just chaos. And so try to get some rest. Like, just plan for a busy day. And by plan for a busy day, I mean plan for a lot of rest, because what often happens, and this is something that keeps coming up, maybe it's because we've got some things in Cancer, but it keeps coming up, the idea of us making time for rest, and then maybe we only get to use like 40 to 60% of that time that we plan for rest to actually decompress and rest. I don't know about you, but when I need to rest and I need to lay down and I schedule time off for that, without a doubt, something happened. My dogs need something, a family member needs something, I've got a phone call to make, I get a phone call that was unexpected. Just a lot comes up, and it cuts into the time that I had planned. And I think if we're not really mindful of that, then a lot of time that we're planning for rest can be slipping away through our fingers. And then we're like, I just relaxed for 2 hours. Why am I not relaxed? And it's like, well, you weren't relaxing for 2 hours. You were checking your email, and your sister called you to talk about your mom, and then your dog needed let out, and then you had to, and then you were cleaning. Like, it wasn't 2 hours of rest. It was 2 hours that you thought was going to be rest that turned into a lot of other things. So this Thursday, if you've got a lot of work to do, if it's something's already on your schedule, a busy work day, a lot of errands at home, just try to get what you can done ahead of time, and try to really just take the time that evening to rest. I think by 10 p.m. that's when the moon enters Libra. That's when things should definitely be starting to settle down, and then it's going to make that sextile to Venus. And so the end of the day, you'll be able to rest a lot better when everything is done and you can say it was done and that you did it. So yeah, just try to get some rest. It's gonna be busy. And that's it for Thursday the 11th. So after Thursday, we have Friday, July 12th. And so with this, Pluto kind of looms behind Venus and the moon. It is in the sign of Aquarius. It's making a trine to the moon. Well, the moon's making a trine to Pluto. It's going to be opposing Venus and then later in the day, the moon is going to make a trine to Jupiter in Gemini. So I feel like with the energy I kind of got for this day, for the 12th, for that Friday, is things are going to be kind of, I just think of the word looming and creeping, kind of like a little anxious, suspenseful, thrilling kind of thing. And I feel like that's what Pluto does. It's such a slow planet. It's not always the smack you in the face kind of planet. Sometimes it's like you have one really big moment and then you see your whole life before you, and then you realize that, oh my gosh, I'm at the gates of Hades already. How am I just now getting to Pluto? And so there's some creeping anxiety in, but it's otherwise a pretty pleasant day. So don't sweat the stuff that will take time. Enjoying your downtime is part of the long process. And so with Pluto being so slow and with it being so powerful, we're not meant to be doing so much all the time, busy. We're meant to take breaks, we're meant to rest, and getting a lot of things done over, getting a really big project that's going to take a lot of time. It's just going to get done one day at a time, whether you're working that day or not. I mean, it's going to be one day at a time, and the bigger you can see the picture, I think the easier it gets to rest a little bit, because you realize how much, room we have to relax. And so I talked a lot about tension and anxiety and creeping and looming at the beginning of today, but it really should be a calm, kind of pleasant day. I'm not expecting anything wild or crazy. I think when we're talking about planets, some people forget that I am not, and astrologers are not, or I believe should not be if they are, prescribing what you will be feeling for certainty. Like, these forecasts are meant to use as a guide or maybe as a description for things that you are already experiencing. And so if you're someone who's watching forecasts ahead of time and someone says something about bad news or anxiety, you don't have to think of it as like adding more to something that wasn't there already. You can kind of think of it as just acknowledging something that is already there. And I think that's where Saturn and Mars get such a bad reputation, and Pluto too, is because it represents the uncomfortable things and the bad things. But those things are there whether we use Saturn or Mars or Pluto or whoever to describe it. They're there, If someone has a really difficult, traumatic experience in real life, whether they say, that was a really big Saturn moment for me, that was a really big Plutonian moment of change, or whether they say, hey, that really messed me up, that was a really big defining moment of my life. You have the experience either way. You're having the experience either way. So yeah, if me and any other diviners, astrologers, whatever, you're feeling nervous about what they're saying, just know they're not adding anything to anything that's not already there. They're trying to describe what's there. And so if you're feeling that nervousness, it's okay. It's okay. It's really nothing to be worried about. If I think you should be worried, I would tell you. I would say, like, today is going to be a lot. You should be worried about it, but I'm not too worried about that for this Friday. I'm expecting a pleasant Friday. So that's the 12th. And now we're on to the 13th, Saturday. So Saturday, The moon is going to be in... Continue. Hold on, did I? No, okay. So Saturday we've got the moon in Libra, making a sextile to Mercury in Libra, and then it is also going to make a square to the sun in Cancer. And so we're looking at the moon, we're looking at Mercury, we're looking at the sun. We're thinking about emotions, communicating, visibility, vulnerability. Those are all kind of the themes of today. And so there's a little bit of pressure today that needs to be talked through. If a trusted friend or loved one isn't available, try reflecting with your inner voice. What could you learn about yourself by listening to your thoughts without judgment? And so if you think about your inner voice as a friend that you can talk to and vent to and reflect things to without judging, because there are moments where like I'm venting to a friend and I know I did something wrong, or I know I was, maybe being a little bit dramatic. I call them diva moments because it kind of lightens. It's kind of, when I have a diva moment, I call it a diva moment, when I really want something a certain way and it's not how I want it, and so should have just done what I said they should have done and whatever. It's a diva moment, and I have my moment and then I get past it. And so the reason I call it a diva moment rather than me being dramatic or me spiraling or escalating or whatever is because we're allowed to have moments. Like, we don't need to judge every thought that comes out of our mouth, every thought that comes through our brain, or every word that comes out of our mouth. We don't have to judge it and figure out the morality of it or behind it. Sometimes we are mad and we say things that people say when they're mad, and we know it's wrong, but that doesn't mean we have to feel ashamed about it, because there is a very sacredness to anger and to honoring how we feel, regardless of how well we can express it in the moment. Because our feelings, our emotions, and our experiences are worth honoring, and if we don't honor those, if we get on ourselves, if we spiral in shame, we call ourselves dramatic, or just say that we just whatever, that doesn't leave a lot of room for growth. If I say I'm having a diva moment and I know it's wrong and it's whatever, maybe it's not making room for growth necessarily, but it's at the very least not stopping me from growing. My diva moments have never, ever since I've been having them, they've been helping me, to be honest. It's been a really healthy way to view my stress and my things where I would normally feel, where I would feel like, oh, I might feel like I need to justify this. I'm really mad at my husband for something silly, and I know it's silly, but I'm still really frustrated about it. It's a diva moment. Divas can feel whatever they want to feel. So, whatever that looks like for you, whatever it looks like with your inner voice of, however you want to call it, phrase it, where you can talk through these things internally or externally. Ideally, if you have like a friend or a loved one, you can talk it out, and that is like what I would really recommend. But at the same time, building that relationship with yourself is something we can't avoid. Like, there's not always going to be someone that we can talk to, and being able to have that voice for ourselves, it's important. It makes a big difference. If I'm not having a diva moment, my inner voice is my therapist a lot of the time. Like my real therapist that I see. I just think about how he would respond to what I'm saying and what I'm feeling, because I'm very transparent and maybe a little too honest with him at times. And he helps me reframe those thoughts, and because I'm able to be transparent and honest, and he's able to have something more to work with. And so work with your inner voice today, be gentle with it. Be gentle with yourself when your actions don't match up with your words. I know I was just talking about keeping your word and all of that, but what's more important than us keeping our commitments, what's most important is that we're kind to ourselves. Is that when our actions aren't matching our words, that we're not becoming our own enemy, in addition to making enemies, because we're not, doing what we said we'd do. And we have to make peace with ourselves, whether we like what we're doing or not. And it's that simple. We just have to. We're in for a long and bumpy ride if we don't. So that's Saturday the 13th. Kind of lots to think about. But yeah, just don't judge yourself. Get rid of your shame. It's not helping you. You're allowed to feel it, but it doesn't have to be where your feelings start and where they end. So moving on to the 14th, Sunday the 14th, the last day of this week. Oh, we have the moon entering Scorpio, and after it enters Scorpio, it is going to make a square to Pluto in Aquarius and another square to Venus in Leo. And so, as the moon enters Scorpio, try to find ways to wind down. Puzzle, strategy games, or a good old-fashioned nap will help you see things in a different light. And so, yeah, don't overcomplicate things this week. It sounds like this week is kind of going to be a lot towards Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and this weekend is a really good time to kind of just reflect, just to take some time, think about who you are in these moments and who you are outside of these moments. Because when we're struggling, and especially when we're struggling for a long period of time, it's easy to forget who we are outside of that struggle. It's easy to forget that we haven't always been this way. We haven't always been having to make really hard choices or act out of character because we didn't have other options. Like, it's a tough world right now. I feel like everyone is working multiple jobs. Everyone is really, really struggling. Grocery prices, gas prices, like, everything is so expensive, and work is just, job is not even providing job security anymore. It's like having a job is just, it almost feels like having a hobby that gives you pocket change. I'm hoping things change. I think they will. But point being, we have to acknowledge, like, the system that we're in and how that system affects us. We can't blame ourselves for everything. We can't. We won't get very far if we do. And there's a way to take accountability and responsibility for yourself, your actions and your choices, your feelings, without having to be ashamed about those things too. So that seems to be a big theme, is shame this week, and just not being ashamed. And so, Pride Month is over, but be proud. It's been a long journey to get to where you're at, and that's always worth acknowledging and honoring. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little forecast today. If you would like to check out my website, I've got some good articles on there that I write. I normally do one every few weeks. Check out my podcast if you haven't. I've got the audio for these, put it onto there. And so if you are more of an audio kind of person, you don't like the video, go check out the podcast. RayofLightAstrology.com. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll see you next week. Have a good week. Alright, this is test number 3.